Hi, I'm Cher and I work on Scope's online community. I recently spoke with Sue Barlow, Team GB Table Tennis Paralympian 2021. Sue has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome alongside other chronic conditions. I began by asking how this impacted her playing sports when she was younger.
I got it initially from it was I started having issues from about the age of 11. My knees were dislocating all the time. I was falling all the time, and this went on for years. My parents took me from one doctor to another, and they didn't know what was happening. They just thought it was something called chronic dislocating patella. So by that time, they were going like 50 times a day. So when from the age of 15 they were that bad, they started operating on them, and I had loads of different operations. They all failed, making them worse and worse till I lost complete feeling in my legs. So they didn't know whether I'd had like a spinal stroke or something because I haven't got sensation. And then I had when the last operation failed, when I had bone and muscle grafts, I ended up going into a wheelchair full time. Um, so obviously from doing every sport going, because at primary school I was sort of the only girl in the lads cricket team, because it's not like now at school where you have girls and boys teams. Literally it was a boys team, but because I was better than the boys, it was the first time a girl had been let in, and I got to county level. um so I used to love netball as well, but literally everything went, from 11 upwards I really struggled. I couldn't coordinate my legs. But yeah, from when I went in a wheelchair, I didn't know you could play sports. I had to transfer. I was at Leicester University at that time doing a double biology and maths degree. So I lost all of that and had to move back at home because I needed sort of converted car and everything. So it was a rough few years. And it was only after a few years, obviously, when you get used to the chair and sort of accepting, that you're going to be disabled in a wheelchair for life, which is a very difficult thing to accept. It was then I sort of looked back into sports, and my parents they struggled, obviously, knowing that I was disabled. And I was misdiagnosed for 20 years as well, which didn't help. So if we'd have known the correct diagnosis initially, then I wouldn't have had all the operations, which just makes something which I've got a lot worse. And then when I went to that sports centre, with all these volunteers who do an amazing job, that's when literally I started realising, well, actually I can still play, but just in a different way.
Yeah. How much training do you normally do for big events, and how has COVID-19 impacted this preparation?
COVID, I suppose in the grand scheme of things, when you think of how many people have died or seriously ill, do you know what your sport just sort of goes out the window, doesn't it, with everything that's gone off? But looking from a sporting point of view, it's been very challenging because up to the qualification tournament, we'd not competed for like 16, 17 months. So to go there and then say you've got to beat the best in the world or you can't go, a medal isn't good enough, you've got to win it, was very challenging. Because last year, obviously, we were all isolated for 6 months. And because of my disability, I had to shield as well. So when we started back, it was, I think, 3 times a week. Two of the venues I normally sort of train at Northern General, and there's a chapel at Higham, which I can sometimes use. Obviously, they won't let me train there. We still can't get back in those, unfortunately. So with being a full-time teacher and Senko as well, I train every night and weekends, which I just haven't been able to do. So EIS, I've been sort of paying extra to train sort of later on. So I get 3 sessions with the squad. And then my partner, who is a retired Paralympic player as well, he goes and trains with me as well. So he's not played for 9 years.
Do you think the Paralympics have helped improve public perceptions of disabled athletes?
I do. I think London was the real turning point, for Britain itself, because in past years there has been very little coverage of the Paralympics. The Olympics is on all day, every day, on every channel, but when it comes to Paralympics, you were lucky to get an hour a day. And then when Channel 4 took over it, the coverage is so much better. And when the last leg started as well, I think that's given disability and disabled sports, a real push in the right direction, where they see the presenters on there. But yeah, the coverage of London, it was on so much, and so many people were so positive about it. And I think that's how it should be. You've still got that ability. Yes, you're disabled, but you still compete at the highest level, just like Olympians. And to me, it should be celebrated exactly the same and promoted exactly the same. I'd love to see an event, where the Olympics and Paralympics combine. I know it would be a logistical nightmare for the village, but that's why I think that's one of the things I really enjoyed about the Commonwealth Games, because it's the only time where we get to be, with the able-bodied squad and all the sports are together. So you've got your able-bodied and disabled. And I would love to see Paralympics move to exactly the same thing. Now, I know it's a lot more people, and logistically, I don't know if it could ever happen. But as a Paralympian, I would love it where we were just all together, and you were all there equal.
What more do you think could be done to increase disabled people's participation in sport?
I think that's one of our concerns at the moment. There are very few people coming through. In the standing classes, because there are 10 classes, well, there's 11. There are 5 standing classes, and then there's a learning disability class, which is class 11. And then there are 5 wheelchair classes. So class 1 is sort of your quadriplegic up to sort of class 5, where you're in a chair, but you've got full mobility and full arm strength. And we are really struggling to bring wheelchair players through. So one of our coaches is lovely. I've known him since he was really little, when he used to come and train with us. And he is the manager now of sort of Podium Potential. And he goes out and tries and gets players into the sport. But for some reason, we're just not getting them through into wheelchair, which is such a shame. Because like 10, 15 years ago, we'd got 20 odd wheelchair players. We'd hardly got any standing players. It was majority wheelchair players. Now there's only a few of us. And it's such a shame that, new players are just not coming through in the numbers that are there. So there certainly needs to be a big push on that. I think they all go, I think basketball must get to them first. It would be nice to get more into table tennis. And other sports, there must be so many disabled people out there who don't do sports. And we need more clubs around, who offer those facilities to attract those people to have the confidence to go to them and try out different sports. And I think that's a key area that needs to be developed across the country.
Well, a big thank you to Sue for speaking with our online community. Please feel free to leave any questions or thoughts about her words on this thread.